Hi, I'm James Eade of the Eade Foundation, and you can call me Jim. Welcome to the Chess Files. The answers are out there. So I want to tell you a little bit about me and a little bit about the Eade Foundation. I started playing, my first chess tournament was in 1972, no bonus points for guessing why. But by the time I was a senior, I was a pretty good chess player. I was winning adult tournaments, and I ended up becoming an FM, and I was good enough to fight with grandmasters, but I wasn't really good enough to become one. So I turned my attention to other things, chess organizing, chess writing, and I wrote the book Chess for Dummies. I've done so many things that in 2018, I was awarded the Outstanding Career Achievement from the United States Chess Foundation. But that's enough about me. What about the Eade Foundation? Well, the Eade Foundation is dedicated to building communities through using chess, by using chess. And if we build a community through chess, you're never alone. If you're part of a community, you're never alone. Now, if you can access the internet, you can find the chess community online, and you can play anyone, anywhere, at any time. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter what country you're from. But what if you can't get on the internet? What if you don't have the resources to even buy chess sets and boards? That's when the Eade Foundation can help you. We can come in and help you get the resources that you need to start a community wherever you are, whatever country you live, whatever language you speak. It just doesn't matter. And we've been doing this in Uganda. And why do I do this? Because I get things like this. This just makes my heart swell. So I love to do it. So that's Uganda. We're doing it in Zambia. We've been starting programs in senior centers. These are the types of things that the Foundation does. But we do chess literacy and chess excellence. Chess excellence was awarded to the first prize for the best chess essay for chess excellence was given to Alexi Root this year. And for her essay, she's involved in the University of Texas, at Dallas at Texas. And her essay was outstanding about what she wants to do for creating a book about U.S. women champions. And this is the thing. It doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, what gender you are, what color you are. None of that matters when you're playing chess. And so the Eade Foundation is dedicated to helping you learn how to play chess and get as good as you want to get. What's your goal? Is your goal to beat your mom or dad? Great, we can help you with that. Is it to be the world champion? Well, you might need some more help than the Eade Foundation can give you. But today's question, I wanted to talk a little bit about I'm going to change this little scroll at the bottom of the screen because, of course, you can go to theeadefoundation.org because the Eade Foundation is a charity, but donations are necessary. Every donation helps me help them. So that's the purpose of me flashing this the scroll. But the question of the day, can chess position itself as an ideal midway point to transitioning back to in-person activities? Some of us are getting vaccinated. Some of us are going back to in-person, all sorts of things. Whatever you do, chess, bridge, whatever, you can do it in person now, but we're just transitioning. So how can chess play a role in that? Well, I don't know that much about this topic, so I brought a guest on. And this guest is an international master, a computer scientist, a mathematician, a man that I've wanted to have on for a long time, and his name is Ken Regan. Wait a minute, that's my producer messing around. Hey, that's not the real Ken Regan. This is the real Ken Regan. Hi, Ken. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
It's my pleasure
getting to know you. So
Thank
we'll
you.
say the pandemic has lengthened and shortened my distance. I'm up in Buffalo, where there's some chess activity, but it's not easy to pop down to New York City or even to Cleveland to talk and meet with people, or up to Toronto. That got harder after 9/11. And so I've missed out on a lot. On the other hand, the pandemic has forced me to interact online. So I've gotten to know lots of people like you and others. And there's been much more need to communicate with me, for good or ill, depending on the situation, which we will certainly talk about when we talk about mathematics of what's going on with online chess and hybrid chess.
Thank you. And my producer's reminding me that I'm supposed to ask the human interest questions, and you've answered one of them. It's like, one of the questions I have is, where did you grow up and where do you live now? And I guess it's Buffalo.
I was
But
born
where did
in
you grow
Brooklyn.
up?
I was born in Brooklyn,
Brooklyn.
and I grew up in Paramus, New Jersey, where my mom is still in our childhood home, but she sold it. And to give you an idea of the housing market, she sold it for a 5-figure sum bigger in the afternoon than it had been that morning. The Delta. So
goodness.
yes. So she's moving to an apartment near my sister, but she was well known on the New York chess scene because she drove me into tournaments in New York City from Paramus, New Jersey, all during the 1970s. So I learned the moves at age 5 by watching my dad play my uncle. And it took me
kind of like Capablanca.
Yes, after 6 months, I was able to win most of the games.
Mm-hmm.
Then I discovered the Dumont Chess Club, and my brother and I played in the tournament there. My brother actually beat me our very first game. And then I discovered that there were tournaments in New York City and the U.S. Chess Federation. So I showed up for the New York area under 12 championship in August 1970. Well, I was the only player. So Bill put me in the New York area under 16 championship, and I tied for third with a 4-1, 4 points out of 5 or 6, I forget.
Yeah.
So that got me realizing, oh yeah, I can play this game. And I had 2 years of rapid growth. That fact might be relevant to some mathematical things we say later. So by the time of the Fischer-Spassky match, I was almost a master. In fact, I think my live USCF rating went over 2,200 at some point in 1972. So I was a panelist on 2 of the games. So I was a panelist on Game 7 and was invited back for one of the games, one of the draws toward the end. So that was real fun.
My goodness. Yeah, so it's almost it's a rise that puts my growth from my freshman year to senior year to shame.
But
I'm
then
getting
I
a little
lagged.
jealous.
So for 3 years, I toiled in the 2200s.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also going to school, and I must say that by age 13, when I did officially become one of many quote unquote youngest masters since Bobby Fischer, I made the decision that I was not going to go into chess professionally. That I just had too many other interests in mathematics, physics, computer science, later computer science, which is what I do now. And I lagged. I was on like 2256, and then in November 75, I played in the Atlantic Open on Thanksgiving, and I won my first game. Then I defeated Walter Brown in my second game as black.
All right.
With 1b6, and then in third game, I think I defeated Mark Deason, and then I drew Sal Matera. And then I drew someone else. And then in the last round, I lost to Art Bisquire in 110 moves. His 2 bishops beat my bishop and knight. But I gained 150 rating points, and that propelled me onto the U.S. Student Olympic team the next summer, so 1976. Yeah. And this is what's also amazing about this new world is in 1976, 1977, that's when I played in the U.S. student team. Yeah, we were in 77. We were in the same hotel as the Soviet team, and we liked them. We got to know them personally a little bit. So Alexander Belyavsky, Adrian Mikhalchishin, Raphael Vaganyan, Oleg Romanishin, and Josef Dorfman. And what's interesting now is that I'm interacting with some of these people again. Vaganyan was on the FIDE Fair Play Commission. Mikhalchishin has been involved in several fair play panels of tournaments where I've been on. And we talked about Belyavsky. I guess it's mainly been the 2 of them, but that's interesting.
It sure is. Life comes and goes around.
Official contact after 45 years.
Yes.
And in the U.S. student team, I defeated but I was the only non-Soviet to win a gold medal. And I defeated everybody I played, but lost a game. I lost to Rui Lopez in 42 moves. So how can that happen? I beat everybody I played, but I had a 6-1 record, losing a Rui in 45 moves.
You stumped me.
Yeah. I put this riddle on my college applications, and one admissions office wrote back saying you got stumped. So the answer is it was a prelims and final format. So the U.S. played Israel twice. So I beat Yehuda Grunfeld once and lost the other time. So I did beat him. So I beat everybody I played, but I also
there
lost
you go.
Yes. There we go.
I love it.
In 1977, we weren't quite as successful, nor I, but I had a crazy loss to Vaganyan, again playing 1b6, where I got my bishop to h2, hemming his king on h1, in by a pawn on g3, with his pawn on g2. So all I needed was to give check, and it would be me. But I could never manage that. So
by that much.
Yeah. So in 1977, I was U.S. junior champion, equal with John Fedorowicz. But that's also when I started Princeton, and my chess playing tailed off a little bit. In fact, it took me 3 years to get my international master title. I had 2 norms and 23 of 24 needed games, but it took a while for me to get that 3rd norm.
I see. And when did you get that?
1980, 81.
81. I see. That's when I got my national master, and I became an FM. And F comes before I in the alphabet. So is that a higher title, FM, than I am?
Well, FM title didn't exist when I got my IM. It had not yet been created, so I did not go through that stage.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So IM is even better than FM.
Yeah,
I just wanted to make that clear for our viewing audience.
Yeah, but I'm not a GM. I'm often misidentified that way.
Yeah, Kenneth was a much better chess player than I ever got to be. So
I did get up to 2450 rating, which at the time put me just outside the world's top 400. But now with 2372 rating, I'm just outside the world's top 3000, I think.
Yeah.
And
well, times have changed in terms of that. I can remember, when the 100th Grandmaster got his title, and it was an amazing thing. He was a California player, and now I don't know how many Grandmasters there are. You may know because you're more. Yeah,
well, over 2,000. I probably more than that. But I haven't looked, although there is something mathematical I can show later on that's related to this. The one interesting time thing is that one of the players with the title only international master who played, this is in the last few months of his life, who played in the tournament where I got my last norm, and he was one of the title players making up the category, was Edward Lasker.
Oh, one of my favorite authors.
Yes.
When I started playing chess.
Right. Author. I wish I had, thought to just peg him for more things about what life was like in the 20s, playing the other Lasker and Kappa and Alyekin and all that. With him and Isaac Kashdan, it didn't occur to me to pepper people for reminiscences.
Well, thank goodness that he wrote down a lot of his experiences. So we could all enjoy it vicariously.
So we can get that, yeah. But one of the topics of my professional work is graph theory. So this means that I'm connected in having played Edward Lasker, and that connects me to other people of over a century ago.
Right. Okay,
so it'd be interesting to trace, how much distance do I have to Morphy? I think it's 3.
Wow.
So there
graph theory. I think of graph. When I think of graph, I think of scamming people. So I'm wrong here. Did I get it right?
Graph? No, not graft with a T. This is graph, meaning a Tinker Toy-like construction with nodes and edges between them.
So
I
is it 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of?
it's exactly like the Kevin Bacon kind of thing. So I can
Yeah.
show you a graph. So this is a textbook that I co-wrote with Richard Lipton, emeritus professor of Princeton and Georgia Tech. He's also a chess fan. In fact, he attended the 1990 Karpov-Kasparov championship match in New York. So this cover comes from both of us, and it's a textbook for MIT Press, gone to a second edition, so it's been fairly successful, on quantum computing. And one of the things that I pioneer in this textbook is the use of graphs to illustrate quantum algorithm. Let's see if the camera is able to resolve it better. Oh, let's see. I see the dots. You don't necessarily see the lines.
Yeah.
Actually, these graphs
Just
were
barely.
first used by an Israeli researcher named Dorit Aharonov, but I, channeled them more.
Sure.
And
Well, that is fascinating. Remind me never to argue with you.
I'm nice. I'm not a polemic arguer.
Okay.
Lipton also writes a prominent computing blog, and I co-write the blog. It's called Gödel's Lost Letter and P = NP. I can show it if you wish. A lot of popular versions of articles on my chess work are there, but also many other topics about mathematicians. In fact, we are approaching our 1,000th post in 12 years.
I don't have this to scroll across the bottom of the screen, but is it available? Like if you go to your Kenneth
Yeah,
Regan,
if you find my website.
Wiki
So if I
page.
can share my screen, I can show this.
Absolutely.
Very easy. Okay, so share screen. Okay, so screen 1. Oh, you'll see all my screen, including hopefully not any private things about chess. But this is my professional webpage at Buffalo. The photos from 12 years ago during a sabbatical in Montreal.
That photo looks a lot like you, Ken.
Well, thank you. And it has various things, links to my chess work. But anyway, this is the link to the blog. Kurt Gödel is the mathematician who discovered the incompleteness theorems in logic. And he was a friend of Einstein. So he is a character in a movie with Einstein and Meg Ryan. So you'll recognize him.
Well, if it's a Meg Ryan movie, I must have seen it.
Yeah, that's right. So, and in fact, this particular post mentions Andrew Appel, a classmate of mine at Princeton, who's an expert on election security and was chair of computer science at Princeton. I think not quite overlapping when Lipton was there, but of course they know each other really well as well. And we have various other posts. So this is a post on the Athena Lecture Award in robotics, and also about notions of fairness and trust. And let's see, well, Dick did a post noting 40 years since my doctorate. It's actually only been, well, that might have a number thing, 35 years. Let's see, what would be here's a good, this is a physics type post featuring Lisa Randall.
I've read your stuff. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, so, and this is about the question about whether muons show physics beyond the standard model. And the reason I included it is that the same sigmas, the same notion of a z-score that I use in my chess cheating work is here being used to assess whether an anomaly is just statistical noise or a really consistent and significant effect. So these are the graph of charts on what the anomaly looks like and whether it's error bars. Now, the thing is, this calculation as a baseline, and the main criticism of this result currently being conducted is over whether the baseline calculation is wrong. So we might do an update of this article. So it's 3.7, 4.2 z-score. So if we get into the math later on, I'll explain that for over-the-board chess, a 3.7 z-score is probably meaningless. But online, it's far more significant because of the underlying rate of cheating online. So these z-scores for physics are right in the crack. Between a value of 5 is considered enough to affirm a scientific discovery of a systematic effect rather than statistical noise. So the question is, with more measurements from the from different colliders, will this create results that affirm a consistent anomaly or that exhibit what's called regression to the mean? Now, this also is important in my chess cheating work. If you have a field of 1,000 players, chances are one of them is going to get off to a great start. Just like in baseball, there are often hitters who hit 10 home runs in April and only 5 home runs the rest of the year. So you have to be able to distinguish that. So will this revert to the mean or will it keep on going? That's the question that I'm dealing with when I am giving round by round advice to directors of chess tournaments. So anyway, so the point of what I'm saying here is all this work I do is grounded in larger aspects of science. Okay.
Well, I'm just super impressed, and I don't get impressed easily. But that's what you're saying is that it's, can I say this, correct me if I'm wrong, you're basing your decision making on objective criteria.
Well, actually, now that's actually an interesting question. So I will allow people to say that my z-scores have one level of subjectivity to them. And again, it concerns the baseline. The baseline issue is very important. So this absolutely I'm going to get into later on, completely apart from questions of cheating, is especially with a fast developing young player such as I was, where do you set the baseline? Ratings lag. How much are they lagging by? The pandemic has especially caused ratings to lag because we've not had in-person chess by which to officially update them. And within FIDE, there has even been resistance to rating hybrid chess. And it took the hybrid chess a long time, in my opinion, to get off the ground, only now, full year after the beginning of the pandemic.
Can you explain to me what hybrid chess means?
Yes, so hybrid chess is the game is played online, but players are supervised in person. Right. There are facilities to do exactly the same thing with university tests, but they're expensive to have in-person invigilators and to make people go to, I should say, SAT type tests.
Sure.
So then there's software for various degrees of intrusion of invigilating online, and that would be a longer topic for discussion. But in any event, with hybrid chess, especially for top-level competitions with not too many locations and not too many players, FIDE can afford to have have the players go to sites within their country, so not crossing borders that might be closed, like the US and Canada still is, and go to a place where they're watched online. And so far, I've had completely no trouble from that. But let's see. But anyways, but getting back to what I was saying about baselines. So we have so the ratings have been frozen. And so the question is, but the young minds still keep improving. So how do you estimate that?
The growth of a talent is not frozen.
Right, that's right. And in my own case, I had explosive growth before age 13 when I was U13. And then I lagged for a bit, but maybe because I wasn't taking chess lessons or playing chess professionally. I was concentrating on school. And then I had another spurt upward. Probably better to project my curve as rounding over a bit, going slower above age 13. So this is exactly what I have been able to calculate in the mass for tournaments. When I have several hundred players, young players, in a tournament and thousands in a series of tournaments, I can get good estimates of the pandemic lag and rating because I very uniquely have a model that measures the intrinsic quality of moves. So now to get back finally to your point about subjective and objective. Okay, so I have so for my statistical full tests, it's relative to the baseline of your rating. My approval form for the USCF even has this boldface warning. It is a distinctive point of Regan's work that it's tied to the rating of the players. For this reason, you should not try to imitate it without doing a lot of effort or something like that. And of course, statistical z-scores are judgments. However, I also collect a lot of box score statistics, and there are inferences one can make from them. And the point is, the box score statistics are objective. So in fact, let me use a baseball analogy for this. So suppose a pitcher gives up 4 runs at Wrigley Field in Chicago in a day game. Okay, now objectively, 4 runs is not what baseball calls a quality start. That's 3 runs, 6 innings is the requirement for that. So, however, the real quality, or subjective, but also the real quality. So as I said, 4 runs ERA is the objective number, but there's the element of, was the wind blowing out or was the wind blowing in at Wrigley? If the wind was blowing out, then that 4-run performance to the pitcher was probably really good.
And not to mention Coors Field.
Well, your Coors Field, yes. Right. So that's so of course park adjustment averages. And now, however, though, there's the question: is park adjustment subjective or objective? It depends on how much data you have, how many years of track record you've done.
I get it.
What does it cross? So, but the point, however, though, is that I keep lots of statistics where it's basic counting, where the numbers are absolutely objective, and especially for comparing objective numbers, that I can do. And right. and so the other thing is that my intrinsic rating can be considered objective. So a point that has come up very often in my work is, the statistical z-score that I give is dependent on lots of factors, dependent on the baseline. It's a judgment. It could be questioned, but it really does depend on what rating I input. However, the intrinsic performance rating that I calculate doesn't matter what my estimate of your initial rating is. It's only the counting of things from the moves that you played. So if I get an intrinsic performance higher than Carlson, and you're a 12-year-old kid, that's probably not natural. Now, it doesn't come with the same confidence interval machinery, so I can't say how unnatural, the way my z-scores do, but it ought to serve as it's certainly at least a sanity check.
Right, sure.
So, I mean,
any reasonable objective observer would say that's out of the norm.
Yeah, that's out of the norm. And one way I put it, I didn't actually put this in an official communication. I hope it's okay for your show. But
fire away.
Yeah, fire away. So, in one case, I would have said, well, so this was a case that occurred while Ali Reza Firouzja was playing in a tournament with a similar time control. So say, you may believe that your child is the second coming of Ali Reza Firouzja, but I could tell you that child absolutely left the first coming of Ali Reza Firouzja in the dust. And this using only the objective counting,
right.
Counting statistics, the box score. Okay.
Right. Right.
There we go.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. So there's an objective aspect to this. There's a reasonable objection to the what has to be a subjective choosing of what the baseline is. But I think that's quibbling more than.
Yeah, that's actually, no, here's a very important point, and I actually wrote this in a report. So I'll say this. I've said this on other shows as well. This is something you can relate to with the rating. So suppose I measure you playing 2,900, and the question is, are you rated 1,500 or are you rated 2,000? Okay, that's the thing. Most people think, oh, you're underrating this child by 500 points. Well, okay. But the mathematics that I'm using is is similar to the mathematics that underlies the rating system itself. And the odds expectation that I get are mathematically related to the chances you have, the probability you have when playing a higher rated player based on the difference in ratings. Okay. So if you're playing someone 200 points higher, the system is designed to say your chances are 25% points expectation. Mark Glickman has famously measured a little more than that. And I even wrote an article on the blog about this. So if you search Mark Glickman on the blog, you'll find it. If it's a 400-point difference, it's like 3-4%, something somewhere there. But you're not zero. Okay. But if it's 2,000 to 2,900, obviously it's a really tiny number. Now, if it's 1,500 to 2,900, it's also a very tiny number. Now, it is true mathematically that if you're rated 2,000 playing a 2,800 player versus rated 1,500, your chances are 100 times better, but they're 100 times a microscopic number. Okay, so instead of 1,000,000 to 1, it's 10,000 to 1 against you.
Right, right.
So the 100 times is mathematically significant, and that's about the difference between a z-score of 3.5 and a z-score of 5. Okay, but the fact that there's this 10,000 to 1 odds is still on the table.
That's true. Right.
And that's the main point. Just like if you're 2,000 playing 2,900, you're still very much an underdog, even though, yes, changing your rating from 1,500 to 2,000 did have a significant effect, multiplied by 100 or whatever. But anyway,
well, how about what I always said when I was playing a grandmaster? I knew the odds were against me that I could win or even draw. But what I would tell myself before the game is, hey, maybe they're going to have a bad day.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm there when they have that bad day.
That's right.
And so it's statistically improbable, but it could happen.
It could happen.
Yeah.
I mean, last time I played in a FIDE tournament was with Grandmaster Dejan Boichkov, whom one of the people I was interacting with last month about cases. And he lost to a 1,900 player in round 1.
Wow.
But he recovered the tie for first. So that can happen. He was very gracious about it. And I did measure his intrinsic quality as having been low, but being a grandmaster has its advantages.
Yes.
So you're with inexperience, of course.
Right.
So you could do that. There's also another way. So to beat a grandmaster, and Andy Soltis's wonderful column this month didn't go quite as far as saying this. If you're playing online in fast games against a grandmaster, you might be able to trick the grandmaster with a clever pre-move. So for instance, there was one game which had a black knight on white bishop on e3, black pawn e5, black knight on c8, black king a8. And normal play, black just captured on e4. Normal play would be white takes queen to e4, black plays knight d6, attacking the queen, and black is up a pawn and should win. But the player instead played queen d4, putting the queen in take. But the grandmaster had pre-moved knight d6. So knight d6 appeared on the board, and that allowed queen takes h7 mate. So you can beat a grandmaster with clever pre-moves.
Oh, that is awesome. That's funny, but that's not going to help you over the board.
Well, that's right. I guess that's
even in time scrambles. Walter Brown would never fall for that.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned hybrid chess, can I go on to another subject, or do you want to continue on yours?
Fine. Yes.
Okay. Because I think you can talk for hours about this because it's endlessly fascinating. But when you mentioned hybrid chess, I had a different picture in mind than just someone monitoring, which I think is definitely at the highest levels a guarantee of fair play anyways. But it's close to it as you can get. I had in mind tournaments, like if we're going back to over the board tournaments, in-person tournaments, there might be a transition period where people aren't willing yet to do that. So the number of entry fees will be lower. And would it be possible to have a tournament where you have in-person prizes and online prizes at the same time? So you would could be winning a Class A prize over the board, Class A online in the same tournament. And then, so you have simultaneously, let's just pick the World Open, is held in person and online at the same time.
Well, that's true. Now you're talking about two separate sections, or are you talking about having joint? Well, actually, I guess so. That. By the way, I mean, you've opened up a whole host of possibilities.
Yes.
So I have to.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, I don't know. Okay. Anyway, that was a potentially important call, but
yeah.
So you open a whole host of possibilities. So one thing is whether you would mix the players and allow pairings of people who are in person with people online, a la Havana Fisher, 1965.
Telegraph.
Right. Yes, and so you'd have all three kinds of games taking place, or would you have them be only little bits of boards? You know what? I'm sorry. I have a feeling I should have to take this phone call. So can you pause?
Okay. I'll hold the fort while you do that. Let me know when you're back.
Okay.
Okay. So Kenneth Regan is talking about hybrid chess tournaments, and there can be a variety of ways to do this, where you're playing people who are in person and online at the same time, or you're playing only people online at the same time. And you can have all sorts of possibilities. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to talk about how can chess position itself as an ideal midway point to transitioning back to in-person activities. Now, Kenneth is taking an important call because Kenneth is an important person. A lot of people rely on him for his expertise in solving a lot of red hot issues. So it's not, I don't need to say that my show is not important, because it is. But the idea here that we're really trying to hash out is, can you have people participating in the same tournament, both in person and online? And the first knee-jerk reaction would be no. But can you? Is there a way to make it feasible? And is it a ways that you do not have to have, and most tournaments are held on a, not so many prizes are guaranteed, but some are based on entries. So if you're based on entries, tournaments are expected to produce a certain number of people. I'm going to bring Ken back into this.
Okay. Yes,
okay.
It was important to answer. It was a computer issue, but I gave a quick try this, and then I'll get back to it when we're done.
Okay.
So,
well, you could pop in and pop out. I'm just grateful that you're here at all. So.
Okay. Yeah.
So the hybrid chess tournaments of the maybe during this transition period, as you pointed out, there may be multiple ways to do this. Are any of them plausible?
Yeah, that's good. It would be really, I mean, you obviously, if you did the World Open in this manner, then you would have to have, one TD for each site. You'd have to have a limited number of sites. And I don't know, I think people would worry too that it would become permanent. And I don't know if, to the greater expense that is involved. I mean, it's less expensive for players not to travel. I kind of uphold the value that traveling in person to play in a tournament is a large part of the experience. So that.
But you might be an outlier there.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's just the same question is coming up with universities, and it appears my university is going all in on in person. I mean, we will have to provide for people who cannot come to campus, But other than that, our university, I think, has declared a vaccination requirement as well for all students.
Well, that makes me think, yeah, being in person at the university level was at that period in my life, that was a very important experience.
Right.
So I couldn't have had that same experience online.
Mm-hmm.
No question.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the chess tournament appeal, traveling to in person, because that's how you make lifelong friends.
Yeah. Very much. It's more than half the value of college. Yeah. I tried to provide a little bit more zip teaching online this past semester. I certainly wrote much more sophisticated versions of my lecture notes. It was like reading 2 new textbooks,
right,
rather than the outline and draw on the board usual way to lecture that people have used for centuries. One aspect of where my work can be informative is I find no systematic difference in quality or nature between online and in-person chess. So I have been screening thousands of tournaments using the settings from 2019 in-person events. And once I remove the evident outliers, or if I only look at tournaments where I am quite confident that the tournament's completely clean. And now I'll have data from from hybrid tournaments that so far is bearing this out. The target is spot on target. So the baseline, the target is established by regressing over large data from in-person chess, but the quality norms of players is hitting that target when the players play online. So I deduce that there's no systematic difference. If there were a drift, if there were a pronounced drift, then I would see it and have to adjust for it.
That's fascinating, because I had this conversation with Sunil Weramantri about his stepson, Nakamura, who's told us that he didn't read chess books. He just did everything online. And I asked him, is there a qualitative difference between learning only online than from the chess books, which is the way I learned, of course. And Sunil thought no. And you're substantiating that.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, there are other things. There are potential differences occasioned by the format of the tournament. And I'll just say that if you read some of my early papers, you'll see that I excluded team play from my early work because I was worried that this was a different kind of chess played closer to the vest with, keep the draw in hand for
absolutely
package deal sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And initial work suggested that. And then when I got a lot more data, I reliably measured that, yes, there's an effect, but it's between 10 and 15 ELO, and it's to my advantage to have more data, so I'll just swallow and sort of squam over this little drift.
Okay.
And so I gave up distinguishing between team play and also I was covering more types of team tournaments. So maybe if I just concentrated on league games, international league tournaments where these agreed arrangements or Olympiads maybe, then I would see more of an effect limited to that.
Right.
But, however, there are differences in format that could have larger effects, such as between knockout or between the type of qualifier where half the field moves on. So that's very much a top of my level subject.
I can really see that. But Ken, my producer's barking at me that we're running out of time. So let's focus again on the question: can chess position itself as an ideal midway point to transitioning back to in-person activities? What's your answer to the question?
I think so, and quite in general, because chess clubs are social, but people do not move about a lot. So the danger of having people in close quarters comes as much from their moving about and getting close to each other and just causing more air to flow by their faces. And it's also the case that chess tournaments tend to be in hotel rooms with higher ceilings, and that's better for ventilation. Or, the higher the ceiling, the better. And so, we do have to be circumspect about, transitioning to places where there are crowds indoors. And,
Right.
and I think chess tournaments have the best feature that should be the best initial experiment. So I applaud, for instance, that the National Opening has happened in a few weeks in Vegas, where, if
It's a big
there's
ballroom.
Yeah, in a big room. I mean, the other thing is, does it have a vaccination requirement?
I don't know the answer
Yeah.
to that. Yeah.
See, well, if it doesn't, of course, then it's a super spreader test. If it does, then it's a breakthrough test where, the scare with the New York Yankees in April or late
Right.
early May, where some people have been vaccinated, tested positive.
I'm
But it
quite well
appears
aware of that.
It appears that the vaccination was effective in curtailing any knock-on effect. So that's one thing to realize. That's its main duty, and so maybe it can be a test bed of, we might get more positive tests. Of course, the reliability of initial COVID test is a whole other issue. And this was a major part of my appearance last weekend with Sasha Starr and Alex Yermolinsky, where he had a positive test in the tournament in Mexico, but it was a false positive, undoubtedly. So anyway, but I think that the National Open will be a very important experience, and I hope that there are some scientific observers of it.
Well, the National Open was one of those tournaments I would just go to. I played in it for many years, but as I got older, I would just go to see old friends. It's part of the in-person experience, and I just think that these types of things, you can't wait for them to come back. Online chess is great when you wake up at 3 a.m. and you want to play someone in chess. You could probably do it online and not so much in person. So there's places for both, I think, in the future. But how we transition back to in-person events, which is how you and I grew up with, there was no online chess when you and I started playing. So we might be biased in that the online chess of our youth was non-existent. So the in-person was the only thing we could judge by. But I still believe that it has great value.
Very, very much. And as I said, what you can say objectively is that chess is the kind of activity where you have a lot of people in a room, but they're not milling about for the most part.
And so if you have adequate ventilation, you have high ceilings, as you say, and most of these larger tournaments are in big ballrooms. You're not crowded into a small room. So there, but we'll have to wait and see on the results.
Yeah. The only thing, and people usually are, looking down at the board. So the only other, the virus actually has less susceptibility to surfaces than was previously believed.
Correct.
So you still have the concern of handling the pieces. So I had this idea, I circulated to people that we should patent little bits of cellophane, like when you get donuts at a grocery store, and have them by each board and call them pawn grabbers. So, and that way you could more sanitarily handle the pieces.
And hand sanitizers are free.
Yeah, hand sanitizer.
Usually water is provided. Like hand sanitizer is provided.
Caffeinated hand sanitizer. I think you could negotiate with
like two birds with one stone. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, by the way, talking about that, there was one time when I went up to what I was sure was hand sanitizer. It was vanilla syrup for coffee. So. So okay. Anyway,
don't handle the pieces after that.
No, not after that. That's right. So,
well, Kenneth, is there anything else you'd like to share before we get gonged? Because this has been wonderful to have you on, and we could go further in so many of the things we've just touched on. You brought up some of the mathematicians and mathematics that I think I cut you off before you really got rolling there. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we have to say goodbye?
Well, I should just say that one of the important things about my model is it's not just about cheating. It's the scientific study of the nature of decisions made by the human mind and how they are affected by time. And so I'll briefly share my screen once more.
Okay.
So as I said, one of the scientific findings is that there's no difference between online and other play. This is the other main scientific finding, that should be academically written up. But this is, it's an interpolation based on 2 reliable data points for game 15 plus 10, essentially game 25 to 60 moves rapid from the World Rapid Championships, and similar thing, game 5, game 3 plus 2 from the World Blitz Championships. And then some other hard data points. It's zeroed at 165. And what this is, and what makes this work internally mathematically, is that 2 different means of computing and estimating the change in rating quality with time pressure converge to each other. So it's internal mathematical confirmation of this being correct. So the red and orange almost coincide. And I've recently been applying this for the Women's Speed Championship, which has sections at games equivalent of game 6, game 4, and even game 2. So here's 2 minutes over here where my mouse is. And there's a little bit of a play in where the red and orange lines cross. But the Women's Speed Game 2 Blitz, I did a full scientific study of that last week, and I got within 40 points. So I got a result of 800. And my curves would predict 835. So I think I've nailed the effect of human quality on decision time quite well. And what I'm saying about this is that this is an example of several checks and balances in my model that Roger the overall consistency of my work. And that's one thing. I have a full predictive analytic model that is really about honest players. And the fact that it does more to begin with guards against mission creep that can come in if I only designed a model designed to detect cheating. And that's a major point that people who have interacted with me appreciate, but others might not.
Yeah, that's a very valid, to my way of thinking, point, and deserves some attention. So I'm grateful for you to pointing that out. Yeah. I'm very grateful for you for being on the show. And I think we've just touched on some topics, and depending on your schedule, maybe I can have you back and we can go into some of these things.
Go into. So I intend to, in the next week, if I get time, write an article on how I've adjusted ratings. How I've estimated what I call pandemic lag. And the article will emphasize this isn't just for chess, it's for all measures of cognitive development that have been interrupted by schools going online and by deficiencies in instructional level, whatever can be measured. And how do we assess our populations? That's another larger scientific area that I hope my work can inform.
Yes, and I just tip my hat to you because you're doing outstanding work, and it's a great service to the chess community. You're a big part of it, and I can only guess at how much effort you're putting into this, but I'm sure it's substantial.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So thanks, Ken, and we'll talk talk about the future.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Goodbye. All right. That was Kenneth Regan, an international master, a computer scientist, and a mathematician, outshining me in terms of all of those categories. And so I might have him back on, but I'm not sure my ego can take it. But the idea of the chess files is to post a question, and because we know the answers are out there. And the purpose of the EAT Foundation is to build communities through chess. And if you're part of a community, you're never alone. And it doesn't matter what country you live in. It doesn't matter what language you speak. If you play chess, you're playing the same game. And you can be part of a community. Whether it's online, in person, it doesn't matter. If you're big or small, it doesn't matter. If you want to be a basketball player, that might matter. But in chess, it doesn't. So we can teach anyone to play. Anyone can learn chess. People think it's too complicated. No, look at me. I can do it. You can do it. So this has been the Chess Files. The answers are out there. It's every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And I hope you see me next week at the same time and the same channel. So keep trying to build communities through chess, and you'll never feel alone. Thank you. Wait. My producer's telling me I've got an outside. I'm getting some input. Okay, I've got to play the video.